Okay, so let's jump into some AI news, shall we? It's March 1st, 2025, and let me tell you, there's some pretty big updates coming out about large language models and hardware, and even some interesting chatter about AI developing something like emotional intelligence.
It feels like every single day there's a new breakthrough or controversy in the AI world.
Seriously, though, like, have you seen the stuff about OpenAI's release of GPT 4.5? I mean, everybody was so hyped about it, but the early reviews are kind of strange.
It is interesting to see how people are reacting. Some users are saying that GPT 4.5's knowledge base is bigger and it's easier to talk to. It's even gotten funnier and has better vibes.
Wait a minute, hold on. Are you serious AI with a sense of humor? What does that even mean?
It's a question that's got everyone debating. Some researchers think these big language models are just getting really good at sounding like humans, and that includes humor. But others are wondering if something more is happening, like maybe these models are starting to develop a basic form of emotional intelligence.
Okay, now that's something I want to dive into. But before we get too deep into that, let's talk about how well GPT 4.5 actually works, because I've seen a lot of people complaining about how slow it is and how expensive it's gotten, especially for coding.
Yeah, that's a real concern. It seems like even though GPT 4.5 is great for some things, like being creative and telling jokes, it's not so great when you need something fast and efficient, like writing code. Some benchmarks even show that it's slower than other models like Claude 3.7 or Sonnet when it comes to coding.
And don't forget about that price tag, 150 for every million tokens.
Mm.
That's not cheap, especially if you're not really getting what you paid for.
That brings up a good point about how powerful something is versus how efficient it is. I mean, is it really a good idea to just keep making these models bigger and bigger and use more and more computer power? Or do we need to come up with smarter ways of doing things and maybe even build special hardware that gets the job done without costing a fortune?
It sounds like we might be reaching the end of just making AI bigger. We need to be smarter about it and think about how much it costs, how fast it is, and how easy it is for people to use it.
Right. And that's where companies like DeepSeek are coming in. They have a model called R1 that's getting a lot of attention because it's really good at reasoning and doesn't need a ton of computing power. They've come up with something called dual pipe technology, which is a way to make training AI faster without needing a crazy amount of computing power.
Okay, I'm going to need you to explain that a little bit because pipeline parallelism and dual pipe technology,
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting into some serious AI hardware stuff now.
It is getting technical, but this is important stuff, especially if we want to make AI accessible to everyone. Think about an assembly line where each person has one job. Pipeline parallelism is similar to that. It divides the AI model into different parts and puts them on different processors so they can all be trained at the same time.
So it's like breaking up a big task into smaller ones and doing them all at once.
Precisely. And DeepSeek's dual pipe technology takes it to another level by making sure the data flows smoothly between those processors so there are no delays and everything runs faster. They're even saying that it's really good at getting rid of bottlenecks that slow down the training process.
Sounds pretty impressive. But training faster is only part of the story, right?
Yeah.
What about dealing with all the data AI needs?
You hit on another key point. You see, DeepSeek is also doing some cool things with their file system technology. It's called Fireflyer File System, or 3FS. And what's really interesting is that it keeps the instructions for the data separate from the actual data. This makes it really fast at reading data.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, 3FS can handle those huge amounts of data that AI needs much faster than the old way of doing things.
Exactly. And when they tested it, 3FS blew other file systems out of the water. It really shows how dedicated DeepSeek is to improving every part of AI, from hardware and software to how data is managed.
With all this talk about efficient training and data management, I'm starting to think about how AI is being used to create new products out there. Are companies actually taking these advancements and making something new with them?
Absolutely. In fact, Microsoft just came out with their MagGMA 8B model. It's designed for both the physical and digital world. Think about robots that can actually understand and interact with their environment, or AI that can do complicated tasks online.
Embodied robots.
Yeah.
Now that sounds like something straight out of a movie.
Well, it's a sign of just how quickly AI is evolving and changing the line between what's real and what's digital. It really makes you think about what the future holds for AI.
It's definitely exciting, but also a little scary to think about. But hey, we were just talking about DeepSeek and all the cool stuff they're doing with hardware and data. Are they doing anything else to change the AI game?
Well, they're not just about making things faster and cheaper. They're big believers in open source development. In fact, there's a rumor going around that their next model, R2, is going to be open source. And that could really shake things up.
Open source. Wow, that's a bold move.
Ah.
What would that even mean for the AI world?
It could change everything. Imagine a world where anyone, developers, researchers, even just people messing around with AI can use these cutting-edge models without being stuck with some company's proprietary system. It could lead to a huge explosion of new ideas and creativity as people experiment with these open source models.
It would definitely make AI more accessible to everyone, but wouldn't people worry about it being used for bad stuff? Or someone creating something dangerous?
Those are definitely valid concerns, and the AI community is talking about them a lot. It's a good reminder that we need to be careful and think about the ethics of AI as it gets more powerful.
Speaking of ethics, there's been a lot of talk about AI bias and how these models might end up being prejudiced, just like some people are.
Right.
Is DeepSeek doing anything about that?
They've been very outspoken about building AI that's fair and doesn't discriminate. In fact, their R1 model uses a bunch of techniques to try and reduce bias when it's learning. They're also working with other companies and groups to come up with ethical guidelines for developing and using AI.
That's good to hear. It's important to remember that AI needs to be used responsibly as it becomes more common and powerful.
Definitely. And it's not just DeepSeek, OpenAI, and Anthropic are also putting a lot of effort into making sure AI is used for good.
It sounds like there's a lot of healthy competition in AI right now, which is always good for innovation. But what about those big companies like NVIDIA? They've been the kings of AI hardware for a long time. Are they worried about these new companies coming up?
They're definitely not just sitting back. They actually just announced a big change in their plans. They're moving away from INT4 tensor cores and going with FP4 instead.
Okay, I'm going to need you to break that down for me.
Okay.
What are tensor cores, and why is this switch from INT4 to FP4 a big deal?
Think of tensor cores as specialized parts of a computer chip that are designed for a specific type of math that's super important for deep learning. INT4 and FP4 are basically different levels of precision used in these calculations.
So it's kind of like the difference between using a calculator that only does whole numbers versus one that can do decimals.
That's a good way to think about it. INT4 is fast and efficient, but not as precise. FP4 is more accurate, but it needs more power.
So why is NVIDIA making this change? What does it mean for AI development?
It's not totally clear yet, but some experts think it might have to do with a technique called quantized model training. This technique uses less precise numbers to save memory and computing power.
So it's all about finding the right balance between speed and accuracy.
You got it. And this move by NVIDIA could have a big impact on how AI models are designed and trained in the future. It shows that the world of AI hardware is changing quickly and companies are pushing the limits of what's possible.
It's like a race to build the best and fastest AI chips. But let's talk about another exciting area of AI, voice AI. You mentioned earlier that Sesame is doing something really interesting with their real-time conversational voice model. What's so special about it?
What's really cool about Sesame's voice model is that it can generate super realistic and natural sounding speech, and it can do it live. Some people are even saying it's as good as OpenAI's advanced voice mode.
And they're planning on making it open source too, right?
That's the rumor. And if it's true, it could be huge for developers who want to add high-quality voice interaction to their apps. It could lead to a whole new world of voice-enabled AI experiences.
It's amazing to think about all the things we could do with that. From virtual assistants and chatbots to educational tools and accessibility features, the possibilities are endless.
It's definitely an exciting time for voice AI. We're only just beginning to see what it can do.
With all this talk about advanced AI, I can't help but think about what it means for jobs and the workforce. Are robots and AI going to replace human workers someday?
That's a question a lot of people are asking. And while it's true that AI can automate some tasks, it's also creating new opportunities and changing the way we work. Instead of getting rid of human jobs altogether, it's more likely that AI will help us do our jobs better, allowing us to be more creative, strategic, and focus on things that require human interaction.
So it's more about humans and machines working together than against each other.
Exactly. And as AI continues to develop, we'll need to learn new skills and adapt to this changing work environment. Being able to learn new things and being flexible will be really important in the age of AI.
It's a good reminder that technology is a tool, and it's up to us to use it wisely and responsibly.
And that brings us to the bigger conversation about how AI is going to affect society. We need to have serious discussions about making sure these powerful technologies are used for good and that everyone benefits from them.
It feels like we're just starting a long and complicated journey with AI.
We are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to require collaboration, innovation, and a commitment to doing things the right way. But if we do it right, AI has the potential to make a huge positive impact on the world.
Wow. It really sounds like we're at a turning point for AI. There's so much happening so fast.
Yeah.
But if you had to pick just one thing for our listeners to take away from all this AI news, what would it be?
Hmm, that's a tough one. But I think the most important thing to remember is that the AI world is constantly changing. We're seeing amazing progress in hardware, software, and even in our understanding of what AI can do. It's not just about building bigger models anymore, it's about making them smarter, more efficient, and making sure they're developed responsibly.
So it's like we're strapped into a roller coaster that's just starting to climb the first hill.
Yeah, and if you want to stay ahead of the game, keep an eye on companies like DeepSeek. They're really pushing the limits with their focus on efficiency, open source development, and ethics. They're setting a new standard for everyone else.
And don't forget about voice AI. Sesame's open source voice model could totally change the game and open up a ton of new possibilities for developers and users.
It's definitely an exciting time to be following AI, and I can't wait to see what incredible breakthroughs are coming next.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride through the latest AI news. It's been a fascinating look into the ever-changing world of artificial intelligence.
It's always great to chat with you about this stuff, and I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Until next time, stay curious.